Project Atla, Episode 1, The Apprenticeship. Theodore laid restless, staring up at the top of his pod. There was no time for sleep, knowing he was leaving Atla for the first time in his life. As a boy, his classmates would talk, hoping one day that they would grow up and become men among the stars. Now that Theodore was 18 years old, he was old enough to enlist as an apprentice with the Inferno Guild. Some of Theodore's classmates were also lucky enough to get apprenticeships, but only Theodore was assigned to Vic 8th. Theodore had not heard of this place, and after he learned of this assignment, he was not to tell anyone about it. He was told that once he arrived on planet, they would explain the details, but the operation there was of most importance. Theodore got up and out of his pod and walked from his bedroom area. He made his way to the communal spaces. His fellow apprentices were from all over Atla. They were a mix of men and women, all about the same age. He noticed a small group were crowded at the edge of the viewing deck. From the viewing deck, you could see out into the darkest portions of space. "First time off planet?" asked a boy much taller than Theodore. "Yeah, my parents worked in a factory that developed concrete for housing back on Atla. We lived a comfortable life, but we couldn't afford fancy vacations off-world." "My uncle was in the Oarsmen's Guild," interjected an energetic and excited girl. "So I got to go into space once a year with him. Wait until you get to see us land. That's always the most exciting part." Theodore had been so excited about the thought of leaving Atla that the idea of a new world hadn't even crossed his mind. "Does anyone know anything about Vic 8th? Everyone seemed stumped and no one stepped up to answer. Everyone was just as in the dark as Theodore was. There was a sharp beep, then an announcement. "Inferno Guild apprentices, we are nearing our destination. Please be awake and ready for disembarkment shortly." After the announcement, the group of apprentices became rowdy with excitement. For all of them, this was their first chance to make their own path. Once the final buzzing of the announcement wore off, Theodore was able to discern the outline of a planet. Before he knew it, what was once the size of a peanut became a gargantuan mass. Vic 8th did not seem too different from Atla. It had plenty of water, some swamp lands and central areas where small towns were established. A land so secret, but not any more special than what we've explored before. Why would they keep such a place a secret? Theodore thought to himself. The rest of the apprentices went from restless with anticipation to confusion when the planet was fully realized. "This is just like digging for minerals at our home planet," the tall kid from earlier exclaimed. He scoffed and walked away from it. As he was walking away, Theodore noticed a purple shimmer around the tall kid. It was as if, for a brief moment, they were underwater, and you could see the surface tension as he emerged. Theodore looked around to see if anyone else was reacting. No one broke from the conversations they were having. "It's been a long journey here," Theodore thought to himself. "Maybe I'm just seeing things." The first stop for apprentices was orientation. The first speaker for the orientation was not who Theodore would expect. "Hello, new members of the Inferno Guild. My name is Rorik Dalton, and I am the regional executive of the Distant Lands, and Vic 8th happens to be inside my domain." Rorik was dressed in an all-white outfit with the insignia of the Trading Guild. "I welcome each one of you to Vic 8th. It is not a place to call home, but a place to build the future." Rorik's words were delivered with a confidence that could only be found within the royal family of Atla. "You all are naturally curious on why you would have not heard of this exploration, and I will be blunt with you all. You are here because Vic 8th has a rare metal that we believe can be harnessed to improve our fusion reactors. The material, if properly formed, could allow our reactors to run longer and improve energy output. There are many in the Trading Guild that would not like that type of technology proliferating, and the surplus of energy would hurt their pockets. But there are many of us who know that propelling our empire further is more important than a small profit to be made today. Please make no mistake, The efforts you are putting in today will allow for our empire to thrive for generations to come." An inspired cheer came roaring from the apprentices. Nothing could compare to youth driven by a nearly divine purpose. A quick glance by Theodore noted that each of the selected apprentices appeared to be from well-off families. No members of the general population or the chosen, a name given to those who had an overexposure to radiation. What do each of these apprentices have in common besides being fresh out of school recruits? Maybe it was their loyalty to the Empire. Theodore let the unease of the situation dissipate by focusing on the new journey ahead. The next speaker explained the logistics of the camp. Those sitting on the left section would be placed on the excavation team. Theodore didn't think anything of the apprentices surrounding him, but he was quick to realize that these people were now his cohort. Excavation team? That sounds pretty exciting. Maybe he was going to be working in the tool room since he was the son of the factory workers. The middle section is our science team. You will be placed into various specialties by the team lead. You will have your assignment by the end of the day. The last section was the section Theodore was sitting in. Debris removal is all the words that Theodore heard. Really, I came all this way to move dirt from one place to the next. Before he could say anything else, they were dismissed to meet their quartermaster. Upon leaving the hall, it was the first time that the young apprentices were exposed to the fresh air of Vic Heath. A dark blue sky with no clouds. When you looked up, you would almost become displaced because there was an open sea of blue with no discernible markings in the sky. Lowering his eyes, he made out rock formations north of the camp. In Atla, these would be called hills, but here they were called mountains. The gray rocks trailed from the top of the mountain down to the base camp. They were in the arid section of Vic Heath, but to the southwest was an area suitable for harvest. He looked more closely to see a small team tending to vegetables planted there. "I don't think the meals are going to be very exciting," he muttered to himself, attempting to catch up with the rest of the debris removal team. But before he could return to the rest of the group, there were 3 team members staring towards him. Confused, he pointed to himself thinking that they were staring at him, but they motioned for him to turn around. Theodore looked up to the ship that brought him to Vic Heath for the first time. No longer was it the bright-eyed apprentices celebrating their first taste of freedom. What Theodore saw was much different. These were members walking arm in arm, almost as if they were brothers. Rather than the chaos of the young apprentices, these were self-assured members of the Inferno Guild. "I heard we're only assigned on this planet for a year," a woman from the science team whispered. Theodore smiled at the thought of how close him and the rest of the team would become. Suddenly, there was a loud shriek coming from the area where the spacecraft was located. "Ah! You can't make me leave!" It was a man with red hair with the uniform of the science team. He was being restrained by 2 security guards. They were keeping the red-haired man outside of the view of the members entering the ship, but the small group of apprentices stepped out of view to avoid detection. The man continued to plead, but his words became muffled as he was gagged and walked up to the lift by the security guards. He continued to fight every step, but his fate was sealed. He would be leaving Vic Heath. Project Atla is written and produced by Elsie Caldwell. Thank you.